So, my dear students, as I mentioned, the topic of today's discussion is biography and autobiography. We'll take a look at this. I hope you are familiar with these terms. You might have heard about biography and autobiography. Can anybody tell me what we mean by these two terms? Can you tell me the meaning of these two terms in Malayalam? Biography, what does that word mean in Malayalam?
ജീവചരിത്രം.
Okay, very good. Then what about autobiography?
ആത്മകഥ.
Good, very good. So we have these two different types of writing. Take a look at this. The biography first. The biography as an art form has developed comparatively recently. You have, though it emerged or it existed in the past, we find that as a genre, Genre, genre as a distinct mode of writing, it emerged recently. That is, we find in the 18th century onwards. When you trace the history of this art form, it has a comparatively recent origin. And look at the person who first used this term. It was Dryden, John Dryden, in 1683, who first used the term biography, defining it as the history of a particular man's lives. This is how John Dryden used the term biography, and he's the one who first talked about biography. So in the 1683, that is in the 17th century, we happen to hear the term biography for the first time. So he used this term to talk about the history of a particular man's lives. That is how he mentioned history. Then, if you refer to Oxford Dictionary, it defines biography as history of the lives of individual men as a branch of literature. So two things are given here. One is it's a branch of literature. As I said, it's a genre in literature, and you have it talks about the history and the lives of individual men. A single man, uh, his or her life is explained or detailed in a biography. Then, in the words of Harold Nicholson, the biography is a truthful record of an individual composed as a work of art. That's how Harold Nicholson describes biography. So we have three definitions, more or less the same, about biography. First, we mentioned that it was Dryden who first used this term. That was in 1683. Please remember, please pay attention to the discussion at the end of the session. I'll be asking questions to check your understanding. You can make lecture notes if you want, and I'll share the PPT later. But at the end of the session, I'll ask you questions to check your understanding. So please remember the points and try to have lecture notes as well. So as I mentioned, it's a relatively comparatively a recent discipline or genre, and it was first the term was first used by John Dryden in 1683, and according to him, biography is the history of a particular man's lives. And also we mentioned the definition given in Oxford Dictionary. It defines biography as history of the lives of individual men as a branch of literature. Then again, another writer who talks about biography, Harold Nicholson, he says that it's a truthful record of an individual composed as a work of art. So it's from these definitions we come to know that biography, first thing, it's a description or history of a particular person, an individual. Number two, it's a branch of literature. So these are the important points that you need to remember when we talk about biography. Now, what or how we perceives today when we talk about biography. The name now connotes, it means a relatively full account of a particular person's life, involving the attempt to to set forth character, temperament, and milieu, as well as the subject's activities and experiences. So, today we understand that biography is a work of art. It talks about a person's life. So you can understand his character, his temperament, his qualities, and the milieu, that is the social environment that he is part of, and as well as the subject's activities and experiences, what all things that he did and the experience that he underwent. All these will be discussed in detail in a biography. So it's a complete record of a person's life, a full account of a particular person's life. So it involves an attempt to describe his character, his temperament. Temperament means his qualities, his peculiarities, and things like that. And milieu, which means his social environment in which he is part of, and the subject's activities and experience, the individual's activities and experience. That's how we understand by the term biography today. Now take a look at this. I mentioned that this branch of literature, this genre, is a recent origin, comparatively a recent one. But you remember, both the ancient Greeks and Romans produced short formal lives of individuals. From the ancient period itself, you find that the Greeks and Romans they engage in writing of biographies. You have the most famed surviving example is the parallel lives of Greek and Roman notables by the Greek writer Plutarch. So we are tracing the beginning of biography. You find that in the ancient Greek and Roman times itself, there were attempts to write about the biographies of great people. So you have one surviving example is that of parallel lives. This is the existing record, first biography written by Plutarch. Plutarch. Remember the name and the work, Parallel Lives. It talks about the Greek and Roman notables, means famous people. And it was translated by Thomas North in 1579. In the 16th century, it was translated into English by Thomas North in 1579. Remember, 16th century. And this was important for us, for the students of literature, because it was the source of Shakespeare's plays on Roman subjects. So we find that Shakespeare wrote number of historical plays about the kings, Henry VI, and you have a number of history plays by Shakespeare, and we know that even some of the one of the plays that we mentioned, Macbeth. Also, you have though it was not taken from Thomas North. I think in that discussion I mentioned it was taken from Holinshed history or something like that. So what I'm saying is, Shakespeare heavily heavily uh, borrowed materials from Shakespeare. Thomas North work that was written by Plutarch in the 4th century. Okay, now you have the name once again, Parallel Lives. It deals with the life of Greek and Roman notables, and the person who translated it was Thomas North, and the date of publication 1579. And as I mentioned, Shakespeare heavily depended, heavily borrowed or used uh, for his historical plays. He used especially Roman subjects, about Roman histories. Materials were taken from this translation, this biography. Now, how biography is different from history. Biography differs from history in being a record of the life of one individual. So here you understand that in biography, we discuss the lives of single individuals. The history, we know that history talks about the lives of people and lives of plays, all these things. But in biography, the central figure is the person that we are talking about. So it's a record of the life of one individual, whereas history is not like that. And also, it's a study sharply defined by two definite events. What are those two definite events? That is his birth and death. So the events that is taking place from the lifetime of that particular person is the topic or the subject matter of a biography. So unlike history that covers the entire history of a place or different people, here biography you find that it is limited in the sense that it talks about the life of an individual, and also it has a definite time span, that is from the birth and death of that person. So this is also a one difference that you can find. And also it fills its canvas with one figure, and other character must always be subsidiary to the central hero. So whoever comes, I mean, even if other characters who are very important people who lived during that time in history, these people appear in a biography of a particular person if that person is some way or the other associated with that person. So you find that here in biography, you find the central figure is the one whose biography is written about. So other characters, however, even if they are very important figures, they appear significance only if they have some connection with that person that we are referring to. Then it studies its subject from both without and within, both without and within. I'm sorry. Sorry for the inconvenience. Let's continue with the session. So, so I was talking about how biography is different from history. I mentioned that in a biography we talk about the life of a person, and other persons appear significance only if they are related to that person. And again, it studies its subject from both without and within. It is an account of his achievement and personality. That is, uh, you can find the person's character, his personality is described, that is his insight, what exactly that person is, and his achievements. Maybe he's someone who achieved great gains in the political field or in a social circle or whatever be the field. His that particular area will also be discussed. So we find that it studies its subject from both without and within. It is an account of his achievement and personality. Then next, the biography should be a faithful picture of its subject with both virtues and faults, neither praising nor condemning, but studying both dispassionately. So if you are writing up the biography, it should be a faithful picture of that person. That means both his qualities, virtues, and faults, his mistakes should also be mentioned. Not praising nor condemning. That means your aim is not to praise the individual or to condemn them, condemn that person. Condemn means to uh, criticize that person, but approach things in a dispassionate manner, detailing what exactly happened in his lives. So that is how it becomes a true work. It's a faithful picture of a person, a subject. It should be a work of art, not a mere collection of odds and ends to satisfy idle curiosity, but that will leave in the mind of the reader a sustained and lasting impression. That's also very important. You have to remember that, as I mentioned, you are trying to describe the truthful picture of an individual's life, but at the same time it is something that some gains that he had, or some odds means some difficulties that he met in his life. No, not just as a description about his professional life or his problems and some of his achievements, but it should leave in the mind of the reader a sustained and lasting impression. Why should you read a biography? When you read a biography, it should give you something. Then only you read. So remember, it's a work of art. So it should appeal to the reader. That's also very important. So if you are writing a biography, it has to make some lasting influence in the minds of the reader. So that's also very important. You should remember that as well. So as I said, it's a faithful picture of a person's virtues and faults. It talks about his life from within and without. That means his personal achievements and his qualities, and then uh, it's a work of art, and that's why it should maintain that impression, lasting impression in the mind of the reader. Then pure and impure biography, you don't find such descriptions or classification in literature in many of the literary works, but for the time being, B. Prasad gives such a description, and you don't find such a clear cut demarcation about biography. But what he means by pure biography, look at this. Any pure biography would give us a perfect picture of the development of both the external and internal life of its subject. So that is what we understand by pure biography. A biography that talks about the external and internal lives of the character. As I mentioned, his qualities, his achievements, everything, his personality and his achievements. But sometimes the biography can be impure. What does he mean by that? Several factors may intervene to make it impure. What do you mean by that? Okay, this, the most common is the desire to honor the dead, to conceal the evil and perpetuate the memory of the good. This is a big problem that we often find when it comes to biography. That means you tend to praise the dead. There is often a saying and that you should not talk about the evils or the sins of the dead. That's why often there is an attempt to conceal the mistakes or faults of a person that you are talking about. So this is something that makes the biography pure. Okay, sometimes you tend to conceal, tend to hide the, what do you call, the mistakes of the person, that conceal the evil and perpetuate the memory of the good. Only his good deeds we will highlight. That is something that makes the biography impure. So this is one of the mistakes that will put the biography impure. As I said again, there is no such a clear-cut demarcation about or different clear-cut division as pure and pure. But we can say for the time being, some of the things that makes a biography impure. One of the factors is that our tendency to honor the dead, that is, conceal the evils of the person, the character. This is something that often we find. There is a saying in Latin, I was just going through that, that is de mortuis nil nisi bonum. It's an or a Latin proverb which says that the living should speak nothing but good of the dead. That is there, in most of the cultures. You find that this is a concept that we have. We say that we should not blame those who died. Okay, so there is a tendency to hide his mistakes. So that is something that makes biography impure. And second thing, a second factor making for impurity is the obstruction of the author's own views and prejudices. A biography, as we understand, it's something that another person writes about a particular person. So what happens is that his own personal opinions, his own views and prejudices, is assumptions about that particular person will also may interfere in a biography, and that will make a biography impure. So this is the second problem that we often find, the obstruction of the author's own views and prejudices. So this is very important, something that makes the biography impure. So these are something that we understand. We need to understand about biography, and We'll also look at some of the famous biographies. The 18th century in England is the age of the emergence of the full-scale biography and also theory of biography as a genre. So, as I mentioned, it began only very recently, that is in the 18th century. So, we have famous biography, that is, I'm sorry, Samuel Johnson's Lives of the Poets. Lives of the Poets, written in 1779 to 81. This is a very famous biography written by Samuel Johnson, Lives of the Poets. Then James Boswell's Life of Johnson. It's about Samuel Johnson, written by James Boswell, Life of Samuel Johnson. So you have number of examples in our mother tongue, that is in Malayalam literature also. You may have a number of biographies, and also recently it has we have number of works in this genre. So these are some of the famous biographies that we have. Now let's move on to autobiography. Autobiography is, in an autobiography, the author writes about himself or herself. That's the difference between an autobiography and a biography. In an autobiography, we find that the writer writes about himself or herself. That is it. Its aim is a successful presentation of personality and of the period to which the author belonged. So again, it also aims to provide the reader the personality and the also the age in which a particular person lived. If you want to write about your personality, your experiences, everything that you had, you can try writing an autobiography. We find that often great people, they write autobiography describing their personal experiences and struggles that they had in their life. That would be something interesting for people to read. So one thing you should also understand here, it is different from a memoir and a diary or journal. Uh, we have memoir, and sometimes you might have come across a diary or journal, which we are familiar with. Memoir, what is a memoir? Memoir means, a biography or autobiography. Look at the difference between a memoir and a biography or autobiography. As we know that biography or autobiography tells the story of a life. As we mentioned, it talks about the life of a particular person, whereas while memoir often tells the story of an event or time, such as turning points from the author's life. So you don't have to detail the entire life of a person in a memoir. In a memoir, what we find is a person writes about a particular event or time in his life. So we have example from Henry Thoreau, an American transcendentalist writer. That is Walton. That is Thoreau's experience in the place where he calls Walton. It's a place where he lives. So you find working from home. So you have to bear with me. Natural disturbance will be there. So anyway, look at this. We are talking about memoir and how it is different from a biography and an autobiography. In a biography or an autobiography, we find that uh, the life of the entire life of the person is described, whereas in a memoir we find that a particular event or a time is given in detail. That is example by Walton, by Henry Thoreau. Then we have a diary or journal, is a day-to-day record of the events in one's life, written for personal use and satisfaction, with little or no thought of publication. So we are aware of a diary. Often we write diary. When you write a diary, you don't have the intention to publish that, just to record your day-to-day life. And that's interesting. That is for maybe your personal use and for your personal satisfaction. Sometimes you write diary. And journaling also is a way of something that we do often, sometimes to record some of the important events in our life, and sometimes to keep journaling or diary. Okay, so that's there. We have examples. I had a call. I got a call. That's why I think there was some disturbance. Well, examples: the diaries of Samuel Pepys and John Evelyn. These are something that they wrote, but later, after their death, it was published. As I mentioned, diaries are something that you write with no interest to publish. But later, sometimes, here in just like Samuel Pepys, the diary, that's a work that he wrote and that gave, I mean, detailed description about the incidents that happened during that time. So we find that what we are discussing is an autobiography. As you are aware, in an autobiography, a person talks about his or her life. Its aim is also to represent his character and also to highlight the major incidents or events that happened during that time. So we have some examples as well. The first fully developed autobiography is the Confessions of St. Augustine, written in the 4th century. That is a very famous autobiography. There's an example for a spiritual autobiography by St. Augustine, where he talks about his transformation as a priest and the his mental agonies and things like that. So this is a very famous spiritual autobiography. And other distinguished achievements in secular autobiography are Rousseau's Confessions, autobiographies of Benjamin Franklin, Henry Adams, Sino Cosi, autobiography of Malcolm X. These are some other autobiographies that you find in English literature. And one more thing I would like to add, in recent days, in autobiography, we find that the distinction between or the division between an autobiography and a fiction is often blurred. That means a biography need not be a truthful account of a person's life. A writer may also use some fictional element as well. So you have uh, Kamala Das autobiography, My Story. Some people made it a big controversy because she talks about her intimate experiences, sexual experiences, and things like that. And sometimes a writer can mix some of the fictions as well. Some fiction can be there in autobiographies as well, and some writers also, some literary historians and some of the people also talk about subjective and objective uh, autobiography. Subjective, more or less, concentrating on what do you call his own innermost feelings and things like that. But for the time being, we have to understand these terms and some of the examples. I would like to end today's discussion with that, and we'll have a quick question answer session just for your comprehension. So that's it for the day. I request all of you to note down these things and start preparing for your exams. I think uh, I'll stop here. Now we'll have a quick discussion on the topic that we mentioned. Let me have some questions and answers. I hope all of you are ready to answer the questions. Now, first question. Mm, so, first question. Who first used the term biography? Can anybody answer the question?
John Dryden.
Very good. John Dryden. Can anybody tell me the year in which he mentioned that?
1683.
Very good. Now, how did Dryden define the term biography?
The history of particular men's lives.
Not lives, lives. Very good. Rifa Abdul Sattar, very good attempt. The history of a particular man's lives. Very good. Now, can anybody tell me the definition given in Oxford Dictionary?
History of the lives of individual men as a branch of literature.
No, don't say literature, literature.
Literature.
Literature. Literature. Very good. History of the lives of individual men as a branch of literature. Very good. So I mentioned another. I gave you another definition as well. Who mentioned that the biography is a truthful record of an individual composed as a work of art?
Harold Nicholson.
Very good. Harold Nicholson. Good. Next question. Yeah. Hmm. Next question. Uh, can you tell me the first surviving example of biography? I mentioned a book. What was that?
Sir, parallel lives.
Very good. Very good. Parallel lives. Who wrote that? Who wrote?
Luther.
Very good. Very good. Plutarch. Very good. And it was translated later. Who did that translation?
Thomas North.
Very good. And when was it translated?
1579.
Very good. Wonderful. So next question. Who used this translation for his plays on Roman subjects? Who used Thomas Nast's translation of Plutarch's Parallel Lives for his plays on Roman subjects?
Shakespeare.
Very good. William Shakespeare. Good. Very good. Next. How a biography is different from history? How biography is different from history? Can anybody tell me how biography is different from history?
Biography is a record of the life of a single individual.
Very good. Then what else? Three points I think I mentioned.
It is divided into two definite events, birth and death.
Very good. Very good. Then
It fills its canvas with one figure, and other characters must be subsidiary to the
good.
central hero.
Okay, fine. I think you have taken the screenshot of the PowerPoint.
No, I have written it.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Next, third point. Very good. That's wonderful. Can you tell me the third point as well?
It studies its subject from both without and within. It is an account of his achievement and personality.
Very good. So unlike history, where you cannot find that kind of a detailed description of the characteristics of an individual, you find in a biography, since it is particularly focusing on an individual, you find his personality traits and in his achievements are mentioned. Now, next question. Yeah. What what are the different types of biography? As I mentioned, though it's not such a uh, clear-cut definition, I mean classifications, still we mention two types. Which are they? Or what are the two types of biography? Or what makes a biography impure? Hello?
When writer try to conceal the evils of the dead
Yeah, good.
and only glorify his good
Yeah,
side.
yeah. It becomes impure. Then, one more thing. Another, another element also is there that makes, uh,
Destruction of the author's own views and prejudices.
yeah, the author's intervention or obstruction of author's own views. The writer tries to include his own personal opinions or his own prejudices about the person that he's writing about. That will also make a biography impure. Then, who wrote Life of Samuel Johnson? Who wrote Life of Samuel Johnson?
James Boswell.
Very good. Tell me the biography, famous biography written by Samuel Johnson.
Lives of the poets.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. What do you mean by an autobiography? What do you mean by an autobiography?
The author writes about himself or herself.
Very good. What is its aim? What is its aim? What is the aim of an autobiography? An autobiography.
Successful presentation of personality and the period to which the author belonged.
Very good. How is it different from a memoir? Or what is a memoir? Memoir. Memoir. What is it? How is it different from an autobiography? Memoir.
Autobiography is a record of life,
Hmm.
while memoir is a
Hmm.
record of an event, single event.
An event or an incident. Very good. What is a diary or journal? Diary or a journal?
Day-to-day record of the events.
Very good. Very good. And also, it is not meant for publication. It's for our personal use or personal satisfaction. We write a diary. Okay. Then mention the memoir written by Henry Thoreau.
Walden.
Walden. Yes, Walden. Yeah. Very good. Give me examples of diaries written by some famous writers. I mentioned two people. The diaries of, it's available in the book form, the diary. That's the name of the book. Actually, it was a diary written during his stay as a administrator. Who was that person? Sam. Can anybody tell me? Samuel Pepys. Samuel
Samuel.
Pepys
Samuel
and John
Pepys and John
Pepys.
Evelyn.
Evelyn, two different writers with their diaries. Now, what's the name of the diary written by Mahatma Gandhi, not diary, autobiography written by Mahatma Gandhi. It was not there in the presentation. Tell me the name of the autobiography by Mahatma Gandhi.
Experiments with truth.
My experiments with the truth. Very good. Okay, good. Now, tell me the name of the spiritual autobiography written by Saint Augustine. What was that? Saint Augustine's autobiography.
Confessions.
Very good, very good. And also we mentioned some other works as well, Rousseau's Confession and autobiography of Malcolm X, and a number of writers, they write autobiography as well. And another limitation of an autobiography is that sometimes the author tends to hide their personal, some of the personal incidents that they don't want to disclose with the readers. And also there is a limitation that most of the autobiographies biography will be written before the death of the author. That's also a limitation. Sometimes before the publication, I mean after the publication, the author may live for some more years, so that events may not be recorded. These are some of the pitfalls of an autobiography. Another aspect I mentioned, that is fictional element. You cannot expect a truthful account of an autobiography. Sometimes the authors may mix fact with fiction. Sometimes they have their personal, I mean, their fantasy working. They'll include some fictional elements as well in autobiographies. So I request you to find out some famous autobiographies and give me some of the examples. You can find out it and mention it in the WhatsApp or Google Classroom. You can mention them. And also, I request you to start journaling. Journaling is a wonderful skill. That means write down some of the incidents. I mean, uh, whenever you come across something interesting, you write down in your own words. Especially if you start writing in English, that's going to be very interesting. That will help you to improve your language skills as well. So start writing, journaling at least. Write down something in your, I mean, when you feel interesting. Maybe an interesting topic that you can journal on, that is lockdown days. That's an interesting topic that you can jot down. You know, you have been staying home, and you know what all things that happened in your life throughout, and maybe this is going to be later on wonderful record for the next generation. They may not have even, I mean, they may not get an experience like this that you had now. So your innermost feelings, some of the anguish that you had, some of your frustrations and things like that, all things that you had during those days. I remember, you know, when the 21 days that we had to stay without, you know, moving anywhere, some of the stress that we faced, all these things you can journal on, you can write down. And I believe that journaling is a good skill that we need to develop, that will also help you to structure your lives in a wonderful manner. Start doing that. Maybe your aims and aspirations you can jot down in your diary. Maybe the next new year is approaching, you can make some resolutions, write down in your diary. Maybe most of the resolution may not be fulfilled, but still that will give you some ideas to look forward to. So I think, you know, develop that habit of writing, record your thoughts, start, you know, have the courage to talk to yourself. At least your innermost desires and dreams can be recorded. And who knows, even, you know, uh, there is a famous uh, writing, that is Anne Frank's diary. That was a wonderful record about the Nazi atrocities against the Jews. Later on, it was, I mean, that was found out, and that was a wonderful record about the cruelty that happened during the time of Second World War. So I feel, we should start writing things that you feel important to your life. I hope we'll have wonderful days ahead. All of us look forward to the days coming ahead. I think next month itself we'll be able to resume our face-to-face classes, and I look forward to meeting you all. And we'll be resuming soon. And I hope during the vacation I'm planning to take some videos about the remaining portions, and that will be uploaded in the YouTube channel, also in the Google Classroom. I will inform you. So relax yourself and prepare for your second semester exam during the vacation. Have a nice time. Enjoy your studies. Relax and learn well. Thank you very much. We'll meet in the next session, most probably. I mean, tomorrow, I think if there is a class, I'll inform you later. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.